Okay, we're streaming. We'll start at 8 a.m. in about 4 minutes. You're Chloe? Howie? At least we have air conditioning. Gerardo?
Yeah.
We'll start in about a minute. Okay, it's time to start. Today and tomorrow, we'll go over the test one review sheet. That's over chapters 2 and 3. And then remember, test one is on Thursday. It will be Zoom proctored, and you'll be able to start the test a few minutes before 8 o'clock if you want to. On page 1 of the test review sheet, we'll start with number 1. I'll just do part A for now, and if there's time left, we can go back to part B. So if we solve equation A, 2.2 times the quantity x plus 5 equals x plus 8.6. So we distribute multiplication, and we get 2.2x, and 2.2 times 5 is 11. and that's equal to x plus 8.6. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to subtract 1x from both sides, and 2.2x minus 1x is 1.2x. And I'm also going to subtract 11 from both sides, and 8.6 minus 11 is negative 2.4. And then we divide both sides by 1.2, and we get x equals negative 2.4 divided by 1.2. You're allowed to use a calculator, like a TI 30A. Anyway, negative 2.4 divided by 1.2 is equal to negative 2. Next problem, number 2. The hypotenuse of a right triangle has length 13, and one of the legs has length 12. Find the length of the second leg. I'll sketch a right triangle, and the hypotenuse is the side, it's the longest side, it's opposite of the right angle. It has length 13, and one of the lengths has length 12, and so we want to find the length of the second leg. I'll label that length x. Then we use the Pythagorean theorem. So we square the length of the hypotenuse, 13 squared, and that's equal to the sum of the squares of the lengths of the two legs. So 13 squared is equal to x squared plus 12 squared, 12 to the second, and 13 to the second is 169. 12 to the second power is 144. We subtract 144 from both sides. 169 minus 144 is 25. That's equal to x to the second power. And then x is the positive square root of 25, which is 5. So the length of the second leg is 5 units. Okay, problem 3, solve the formula capital A equals 1/2 times B times H for B. We can do this in a couple of steps. Since the right-hand side has a coefficient of 1/2, we'll multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 1/2, or just think of that as 2 over 1. And multiply the left-hand side by 2, we get 2A. When we multiply the right-hand side by 2, 2 times 1/2 is 1, 1 times B times H. And we want to solve for B, so now we divide both sides by H. And we get 2A divided by H equals B. The second part of the problem says find the value of B if A equals 24 and H equals 16. We have one of two options. If you are concerned about what you came up with when you solved for B, you can always use the original equation. Just replace A with 24 and H with 16 and then do the arithmetic. But if you're confident in your formula for B, you can use either one. So I'll use the original formula. Replace A with 24. That's equal to 1/2 times B, and H is 16. So I'll replace H with 16. We can do the arithmetic on the right-hand side. If we rearrange the factors, we can multiply 1/2 times 16. And we get 24 equals 8 times B. And then divide both sides by 8. 24 divided by 8 is 3. 8B divided by 8 is B. So our solution is B equals 3. Hey, you can always check and just make sure that b equals 3 is the solution. If you replace b with 3, replace a with 24, and replace h with 16, the resulting equation will be true if you have the correct answer for b. Okay, the next problem, number 4. The perimeter of a triangle is 49 inches. The second side is twice as long as the first side, and the third side is 5 inches longer than the first side. Just to help us, let's just sketch a triangle. It doesn't have to be proportional to the description. We're just using this as an aid. So the total perimeter, that means one side, the distance of one side plus, I should say, the length of one side plus the length of the second side plus the length of the third side adds up to 49. That's the perimeter. And notice that the second side and the third side are described in terms of the first side. So if I just say x is the first side, you don't need to label it, but I'll label it just for clarity. First side, I'm labeling x. And then the second side, we're told that the second side is twice as long as the first side. If the length of the first side is x and the second side is twice as long as the first side, then the second side is 2 times x. And then the third side is 5 inches longer than the first side. The first side is x inches. The third side is 5 inches longer than the first side, so the third side is x plus 5 inches. And then the perimeter, that's what we get when we add the lengths of the 3 sides. So x plus 2x plus x plus 5, we're given that the perimeter is 49 inches. So we just solve for x. X plus 2x plus x is a total of 4x. So we have 4x plus 5 equals 49. And then subtract 5 from both sides, we get 4x equals 44. And then when you divide both sides by 4, you get x equals 11 inches. So we can summarize our results. The sides, the first side is 11 inches. The second side is twice as long as the first side, so the second side is 22 inches. And then the third side, it's x plus 5, so 11 plus 5 is 16. And you can visually check that when you add 11 to 22 to 16, you get a total of 49. Okay, problem number 5. Number 5, solve the formula F equals 9/5 times capital C plus 32. Solve this equation for C. Okay, so if we first subtract 32 from both sides, we get F minus 32 equals 9/5 times C. And we're solving for C, so we'll multiply both sides of the equation by the reciprocal of 9/5. And the reciprocal is 5/9, so we write 5/9 times F minus 32 in parentheses equals 5/9 times 9/5 times C, which is just C. Okay, the second part of the problem says find the value of C when F is 27. So in the formula, we replace F with 27. So in the parentheses, we have 27 minus 32 equals C. And then do the arithmetic. 27 minus 32 is negative 5. So 5/9 times negative 5 equals C. And then this is equal to negative 25/9 equals C. So on a test, on a written test, like the one you're going to take, leaving the answer as an improper fraction is fine. If you were answering this in Newton, you might have to enter it as a decimal, rounded to so many decimal places. But just do what the directions say. Okay, problem 6. Now we're going to do the reverse of what we did in the problem 5. This time, solve the formula C equals 5/9 times the quantity F minus 32 for F. So since on the right-hand side, we have a factor of 5/9, so multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 5/9, which is 9 over 5. So we get 9/5 times C. And then on the right-hand side, 9/5 times 5/9 is 1. And 1 times F minus 32 is F minus 32. And then add 32 to both sides. We get 9/5 times C plus 32 equals F. And then the second part, find the value of F when C equals 14. So in this formula, just replace C with 14. So we get 9/5 times 14 plus 32 equals F. And 9 times 14 is 126. 126 divided by 5 plus 32 equals F. When you're dividing by 5, it's not too hard to write this as a decimal. So 5 will go into 126 25.2 times. So we have 25.2 plus 32 equals F. And then when you add these, you get 57.2 is F. Okay, moving on to the next page. Solve the compound inequality and write the solution in interval notation. So we have 1/2 x plus 1 greater than 2, or x plus 16 is less than 12. So remember what or means. A number x is a solution if it satisfies the inequality on the left, or if it satisfies the inequality on the right. And then when we use interval notation, well, we'll wait and see what we get, but the or translates to the union symbol because we're combining all of the numbers in two sets. So let's solve the left for x. Subtract 1 from both sides. We get 1/2 x is greater than 1. And let's do this together. Or and then the right-hand side, subtract 16. And we get x is less than -4. On the right-hand or on the left-hand side, we multiply both sides by 2. and we get x is greater than 2 or x is less than negative 4. Hey, it doesn't say to graph this, but graphing it might be a help. So a number x is a solution if x is greater than 2 or less than negative 4. So x greater than 2 on the number line is to the right of 2. X less than negative 4 on the number line is to the left of negative 4. So the solutions are all of the numbers that are less than negative 4 combined with all of the numbers that are greater than 2. So I'll just say one more thing. X is a solution if it's in this set on the left or if it's on this set on the right. It cannot be in both places at once. Okay, so the interval notation for this part on the left, this is parenthesis negative infinity comma negative 4 parenthesis union, and then on the part of the number line on the right, this is parenthesis 2 comma infinity. So incidentally, what we came up with here on the left, this is the algebraic notation. So you might need to write the algebraic notation on the test on Thursday. Just do what the directions say. Okay, the next inequality, number 8, solve the compound inequality and write the solution in interval notation. So this time we have the word and. Negative 2y is less than 12 and 2y plus 3 is less than negative 3. So a number y is a solution if it satisfies both inequalities. A number that satisfies one of the inequalities but not the other is not part of the solution. Okay, so we'll solve each of these. Negative 2y is less than 12. We're going to divide both sides by negative 2. Negative 2y divided by negative 2 is y. 12 divided by negative 2 is negative 6. But whenever we divide both sides of an inequality by a negative, we have to switch the direction of the inequality. So this is going to switch to greater than. And then on the right-hand side, 2y plus 3 is less than negative 3. Subtract 3, we get 2y is less than negative 6. So I'll rewrite the left-hand side. Y is greater than negative 6. And divide both sides by 2. Y is less than negative 3. Okay, graphing the solution set might help. So y is greater than negative 6, and y is less than negative 3. So when the word and is used, we're talking about the overlap of those two sets. So it's true that y greater than negative 6 by itself is to the right of negative 6. The other set, y is less than negative 3, that's to the left of negative 3. But we just want the overlap. Remember what and means. And means only the numbers that are in both sets. So the algebraic notation for this compound inequality should be written negative 6 is less than y, and y is less than negative 3. This is the algebraic notation. The one above it is an incomplete algebraic notation. It can be written more compactly like this. Okay, then the interval notation, it's the overlap of those two sets. So the graph can help us. The interval notation is parenthesis negative 6 comma negative 3 parenthesis. That's the interval notation. Okay, number 9, solve the absolute value equations. Okay, number 9, part A, the absolute value of negative 2m plus 5 is equal to 3. So we're going to remove the absolute value symbols and write two equations because the absolute value of a number equals 3 means that number could be one of two things. So the number negative 2m plus 5 could be 3 if its absolute value is 3. The other possibility is that negative 2m plus 5 could be equal to negative 3. So notice that I did not write the absolute value symbols because these two equations without absolute value symbols are represented by the single absolute value equation. Okay, then we just solve each of those equations for m. First, subtract 5 from both sides. So we get negative 2m is equal to negative 2. Then divide both sides by negative 2. We get m equals positive 1. The other equation, negative 2m plus 5 is negative 3. Subtract 5, we get negative 2m is equal to negative 8. And divide both sides by negative 2, we get m equals 4. So m equals 1 and m equals 4 are the solutions. The next equation, the absolute value of 3n plus 7 equals the absolute value of 6n minus 5. If the absolute value of two numbers are equal, then the two numbers could be the same number. So in other words, 3n plus 7 could be equal to 6n minus 5. The other possibility is that one of the numbers is the negative of the other. So the other possibility is that 3n plus 7 is equal to the negative of the number 6n minus 5. So notice I put 6n minus 5 in parentheses, and we're taking the negative of the whole number. So we solve each of those for n. On the left, I'll subtract 3n from both sides. So we get 7 equals 3n minus 5. Add 5 to both sides. We get 12 equals 3n. And then divide both sides by 3. We get n equals 4 for one of the solutions. On the right-hand side, we'll distribute, in effect, what we're just multiplying the quantity 6n minus 5 by negative 1. So the left-hand side, 3n plus 7 equals negative 6n plus 5. And then solve for n. Let's add 6n to both sides. So we get 9n plus 7 equals 5. Then subtract 7 from both sides. We get 9n equals 2. And then finally, divide both sides by 9. We get n equals 2/9. So the solutions are n equals 4 and n equals 2/9. Okay, number 10, part A, solve the absolute value inequalities. So think about what the definition says about absolute values. So this one is the absolute value of 3x minus 8 is greater than 1. So that means 3x minus 8 is either to the right of 1 on the number line, or it's to the left of negative 1.
On the previous problem, if wouldn't you be subtracting 7, 9n plus 7 equals 5, minus 7 to get 9n equals negative 2?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, on this one, up here, when we subtract 7, 5 minus 7 is negative 2. And so n is negative 2/9. Yep. Okay, that's minus 2 points. Okay, number 10, part A. The absolute value of 3x minus 8 is greater than 1. So when we remove the absolute value symbols, we're going to get two inequalities without absolute value symbols, and the word or is going to separate them. So 3x minus 8 is greater than 1, or 3x minus 8 is less than negative 1. Then we solve each of those. So add 8 to both sides. We get 3x is greater than 9. And then we'll start the one on the left. 3x minus 8 is less than negative 1, so we add 8, and we get 3x is less than 7. Then on the left, 3x greater than 9, divide both sides by 3, we get x is greater than 3. And then or 3x is less than 7, x is less than 7/3. Okay, so the interval notation for this, if I write the x less than 7/3 first, we have negative infinity, comma, 7/3, parenthesis, and then union. X greater than 3 means parenthesis 3, comma, infinity. So this is the interval notation. Here, the other inequality, the absolute value of negative 2y minus 5 minus 3 is less than or equal to 4. The first thing we want to do is get it into standard form. That means we want the absolute value part by itself. So step 1 is to add 3 to both sides. So we get the absolute value of negative 2y minus 5 is less than or equal to 7. Okay, so since the absolute value of this number is less than or equal to 7, that means this number has to be between negative 7 and 7. When we remove the absolute value symbols, the word that is going to go with the compound inequality is and. We can choose to write the word and if we want, or we can just write the compound inequality without the word and, but the implication is that the word and will be used. So I'll do it without writing the word and. So we're just thinking of negative 2y minus 5 as a number, and if the absolute value of that number is less than or equal to 7, then that number has to be between -7 and 7. So we write -7 is less than or equal to -2y minus 5, and -2y minus 5 is less than or equal to 7. So this is the compound inequality that we get when we remove the absolute value symbols. Okay, so we want to solve this for y, so we'll add 5 to all three parts to start with. And we'll get we're adding 5, so -7 plus 5 is -2. In the middle, -2y minus 5 plus 5 is just -2y. And 7 plus 5 is 12. Hey, we're ready for the next step. So this one, just make sure that you pay close attention. Since we're going to divide each of the three parts by -2, we're going to have to switch the direction of each of those inequalities. First, I'll just point out, if we look at the left side and the right side, and we have less than or equal to twice, you'll agree that -2 is less than 12. So that's consistent with the inequality symbols that we see, right? But when we divide each of the three parts by -2, we're going to have to switch those inequalities. -2 divided by -2 is 1. We're switching this to greater than or equal. -2y divided by -2 is y. We're switching this one to greater than or equal. And 12 divided by -2 is -6. Okay, so when we look at this a little closer, we have to agree that this makes sense because 1 is greater than -6, right? We might not be used to looking at compound inequalities this way, but this is a valid compound inequality. It means exactly what it says. 1 is greater than or equal to y, which is greater than or equal to -6. And then just look at the endpoints. 1 is a greater number than -6. So it makes perfect sense. You might want to rewrite it so that we have -6 is less than or equal to y, and y is less than or equal to 1. Both of these mean exactly the same thing. It's just that the one on the left, or this lower one, might be the one that we're more comfortable using. Okay, but the interval notation can only be written in one way, and it follows this compound inequality. -6 follows the pattern of it. -6 is less than or equal to y, which is less than or equal to 1. So the interval notation is bracket -6, comma 1 bracket. This is the interval notation. Okay, the next problem, number 11, part A, the absolute value of 2x plus 4 is greater than -6. Well, if x is a real number, 2 times x plus 4 is a real number, and the absolute value of that real number is greater than or equal to 0. So a number that's already greater than or equal to 0 is going to be greater than -6. So the solution for part A is all real numbers. You can replace x with any real number between -infinity and +infinity. And 2 times that number plus 4, the absolute value of that is going to be greater than -6, no matter what x is. So there's really nothing to do except make the observation that all real numbers are solutions, all real numbers. The interval notation for all real numbers is parenthesis negative infinity, comma, infinity, parenthesis. Okay, so this sort of depends on your understanding of the absolute value and just thinking about what it's telling us. Okay, the other one, the absolute value of 4y minus 5 is less than or equal to negative 4. Well, if you pick y to be a number, a real number, and 4 times y minus 5 is a real number, and the absolute value of that number can never be less than or equal to negative 4. So this inequality has no solution because the absolute value of a number is at least 0, and then after that it's positive. The absolute value of a number can never be less than or equal to negative 4. And then the empty set is what you would write. This represents the set that has nothing in it, empty set. Okay, let's move on to the next page. Graph by plotting points, the lines whose equations are given below. So this sentence might seem more natural if I put a comma between by plotting points. So it would have been better if I had written graph the lines whose equations are given below by plotting points. Okay, x equals 4. How do we graph x equals 4 in the xy plane? Well, x equals 4, the variable y is not there. So the line x equals 4 in the xy plane is the line on which every point has the same x coordinate of 4. So that means we're going to get a vertical line because every point on that vertical line has the same x coordinate of 4, no matter what point you pick. So x equals 4 is the equation for that vertical line. The line y equals negative 2. This time the variable x is missing, so y equals negative 2. That is the line in the xy plane on which every point has the same y coordinate of negative 2. So every point that has the same y coordinate of negative 2 is a horizontal line. No matter what point you pick on that line, the y coordinate will always be the same, negative 2. Okay, the next equation, y equals negative 3x plus 1. Well, above up here, I'm going to put a place where we can find two ordered pairs of points. So y equals negative 3x plus 1. If I pick x to be 0, then the y coordinate is negative 3 times 0 plus 1, or 1. And so the ordered pair 0, 1 is a point on the graph. We can plot that in a minute. And then find another point. If I pick x to be positive 1, then the y coordinate is negative 3 times 1 plus 1, negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. Negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. So the ordered pair 1, negative 2 is a point on the graph. And to graph a straight line, we only need 2 points, 2 different ones. So 0, 1 is this point. 1, negative 2 is this point. Oops, 1, negative 2, if you can read that. And then draw a straight line through those points. Okay, for the next line, y equals x over 2 plus 4. So we can find a couple of ordered pairs. Now this is in slope-intercept form, so if we pick x to be 0, the y-coordinate is 0 divided by 2 plus 4, or 4. So one ordered pair is 0, 4 in parentheses. Okay, we can pick x to be any other number, but I'm going to pick x to be negative 2. And so the y-coordinate, negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 plus 4 is positive 3. So the ordered pair, negative 2, 3. The reason I picked negative 2 is I don't want the point to be too far away from the origin since I have limited space. So the y-intercept, 0, 4. So 0, 4. The other point, negative 2, 3. So this point, negative 2, 3. And then draw a line through those points. Okay, number 13. Find 2 ordered pairs, that is x comma y in parentheses, that are solutions to the equation 4x minus 3y equals 6. Finding 2 ordered pairs solutions of a linear equation is the same process that we would go through if we wanted to find 2 points in order to graph the line. So we'll just find 2 ordered pairs of points. It doesn't say to graph it, so we can start by picking x to be any number between negative infinity and positive infinity. Or if you prefer, you can pick y to be any number between negative infinity and positive infinity. But if you pick numbers that are close to 0 or even 0, those are more convenient to work with. So I'm going to just do what's easy. I'm going to pick x to be 0. And in the equation, when x is 0, four times 0 minus 3y, I get negative 3y equals 6, and y is equal to negative 2. Okay, so one ordered pair solution is 0, negative 2. So we can turn right around and pick y to be 0. So when y is 0, we get 4x minus 3 times 0 equals 6, or 4x equals 6. And then divide by 4, we get x equals 6 over 4, or 3 over 2. So 3 over 2 for x. So the ordered pair 3/2, 0 is a second solution. Okay, and we're not supposed to graph, so let's move on to the next problem. Number 14, graph the equation 2x plus 4y equals 4 in the xy plane by using the x and y intercepts. Okay, so the y-intercept is when x is 0, and the x-intercept is when y is 0. Okay, when x is 0, we're left with 4y equals 4, and so y equals 1. So the y-intercept is 0, 1, the ordered pair. And then when y is 0, 2x equals 4 or x equals 2. So the x-intercept is 2, 0. Okay, so we plot those points 0, 1 and label it 2, 0 and label that one, and then graph the lines, draw a straight line through those 2 points. The next 2 equations are the same sort of equation. And so for now, let's bypass 15 and 16, and we can come back to those later if time permits tomorrow. But let's try number 17. This one says, find the slope of the line that passes through the points 1, -7, and 4, 3. So the slope formula, I'll write that down. The numerator is y2 minus y1. That represents the rise. And then the denominator, x2 minus x1. So for these 2 points, in the numerator, I'm going to pick y2 to be -7. So the numerator will be -7 minus 3, and the denominator will be 1 minus 4. And then -7 minus 3 is -10. 1 minus 4 is -3. We can simplify further because -10 divided by -3 is positive 10/3. So that's the slope. Number 18 is the same kind of problem as number 17. So let's move on to number 19. This will be the last problem for today. Graph the line that passes through -5, 2, and whose slope is m equals 3/4. Okay, so if I plot the point -5, 2, -5, 2, and then the slope is m equals 3/4, so a rise of 3 and a run of 4. So if I start at -5, 2, and if I rise 3, I'm at a height of y equals 5, and then a run of 4, I move that 4 units to the right. So now at this point is -1, 5, and then draw a straight line through those points. Okay, that's all we have time for today. We'll continue the test review tomorrow.